Yes, the performance from the All Blacks is under huge scrutiny today. It's been a big 24 hours. You think about the Springboks dominating the Wallabies and Argentina for just the third time. The second time in New Zealand beating the All Blacks. Mills Muliaina, that's Sir John Kirwan. We've got so much to unpack after this weekend. And when you think about what happened last night, the highest number of points conceded, gentlemen, by the All Blacks at home in a test match, 38. We've tried to take the emotion out of it, right? Because clearly there's an element of frustration last night because I suppose we had such high expectations for this group, JK, but we've got to look at this and look at the context of this game, and we have to give all of the credit, you'd have to say, to the Pumas and the way they approached it, delivered, and were good enough to beat the All Blacks again.
Yeah, underestimate them, right? We all underestimate them. We spoke about it last week, and this is a very, very good side. And for me, they actually deserved the victory last night. We let a lot of things go, but they deserved to win because they played a classic game with a few extra things. I think Contaponi has brought something a little bit different, their attack switching sides. You know, Krevy, you think, wow, you know, he's a 38-year-old, but he came on and nailed his role as an impact player, believe it or not, Mills. They were good.
They were very good. I mean, you know, you said it. You know, you shouldn't sort of let your guard down when and underestimate this Argentinian side. And even after I think you mentioned the fact if they're crying, we're in big trouble. You said that after their national anthem, they were crying, weren't they? And I sort of brushed it off. I thought, nah, we'll be right. And then all of a sudden, you know, they come out, the style that they actually played, I thought it would be a physical sort of stoppage, sort of, you know, slow kind of style, but it wasn't. You know, they were a little bit expensive too. And
it's 100% you're right, because quite often they've mixed their passion and it's got in the way of their performance. For a long time they've brought that, and I think one of the reasons in some ways we've underestimated them is the fact that what we've done when we've beaten them is we've beaten them comfortably. And so when we get on top of them, all of a sudden we feel comfortable and it's like, well, we're good enough to beat them every time that we play. But you said this straight away. You said all of the emotion, when they're crying, when they're engaged, and they were clearly engaged, the fact there was only 25,000 there at Sky Stadium, they're looking and saying, this is our opportunity. They brought all of that passion, but they delivered, I think, a flawless game plan against the All Blacks, which caught us by surprise.
There was a massive jolly out there, people. There was a massive jolly out there that you cannot ignore, right? So we spoke about it. We need to take them on front. There wasn't a scrum.
60 minutes.
Right? So how do you really start them crying? As you take them on in the scrum and you smash them in the scrum, you win a couple of a couple of scrum penalties, you kick down and you start. That just did not happen. And I think that was a huge blow to us, and I think it threw us off our game.
But you mentioned it, the fact that they had some variety in their game, Mills, and they started switching play, and right from the very start, they looked as though they had us under stress, and they came with the mentality to play, to keep the ball in hand, because in the past, what we've watched them do is they've kicked for territory, right? They've gone high. What do? No, they kept the ball in hand, and they managed to chase them and make decisions defensively, and quite often we were the team that was stretched.
That's where I thought it caught the All Blacks by surprise, that they're actually going to run things back, you know, switch play, you know, sort of amongst the forwards, try to get out to the wider sort of channels. But you've also got to try and sustain that. You know, there was an ability for them to start like that and then fall off a little bit, and then for the All Blacks to really sort of ramp things up. The Argentinians didn't. They stuck to that, and they almost sort of reversed the game plan that perhaps the All Blacks were expecting. You know, slow at the start and then sort of try and ramp things up. They slowed things down later on because they'd already sort of implemented the fact, hey, we've actually done what we wanted to do.
Look, and tactically and technically, if you look at that last clip that we just showed, our defensive line slows up because all of a sudden what you've been practicing is not in front of you. You know, we often talk about the All Blacks going out. Yeah, so if you just watch this, look how passive our defensive line is. Geordie's made a decision to come in, right? And all of a sudden, you're seeing stuff, so you're backtracking. And that is a really good way for you to start the game. If you watch again, you know, we're not rushing off the line with confidence because they've thrown something at us. Watch this again, right? So they're coming up, scrambling across, they've got numbers. So that's what you want to do to the opposition early, because all of a sudden, all that stuff you practice, get off in your line, smash them over the advantage line, goes out the window. When you talk about the All Blacks, we talk about, you know, sometimes against South Africa or whatever, you've got to do that kicking game to hold up that defensive line. But they did it to us very early.
And that's where you come back to your set piece. No scrum because, you know, they were backpedaling, but there's another chance for the All Blacks to try and get themselves back in the game. And let's go to set piece. If there's a scrum, we can dominate physically to try and slow some of that momentum down that the Argentines, but no scrums.
Do you know what's changed significantly for me? And it was the way that they celebrated after the game. Yes, they were happy, they were elated, but it's clearly a different mindset now. There's no doubt about their ability to beat the All Blacks. A number of those players have been there, and then the next generation of young players that are coming in, because they had a number of inexperienced guys playing in this game as well. Guys who hadn't gone through some of that hurt, hadn't tasted that success, but for them, they believed, JK, and they know now. So the big challenge for them is to back it up, because the last time they won here in Christchurch, the second test in that series, they got absolutely walloped. They didn't front up again. If they back it up, all of a sudden, it's another level up again. And we've got to seriously ask ourselves where our game is at. Is that the way you look at this in terms of the next 7 days for Argentina?
Yeah, so I think the Latin stuff that I talk about often, that will be an incredible win. When they won the last time, like national holiday, this time it'll be a bit more tapered. So they will have other goals, and those goals will be, if we're serious top four, then we need to go out next week and we need to compete again. And that will be a mental and an emotional thing with an All Black team that, you know, should be 100% better.
That should be their next target. I mean, you are. I mean, they celebrated, but you almost got the sense, hey, we know we've got a job to do again next week. On the flip side of that, for the All Blacks, I think we've got the players. I 100% think we've got the players. What I don't think we have right now is the clarity in our defensive system, the clarity in terms of, and probably the buy-in in terms of our attacking, our kicking game, and that's probably what's letting us down at the moment.
I want to go back and actually revisit what we spoke to Scott Robertson about after the game, because remember, this is the first time he's taken defeat as the All Blacks head coach. Let's go and listen to some of the quotes.
Kicking game, Razor, was that something that you'd probably have to have a look at again?
Yeah, we had to. What we're training and doing is two different things, but we take that on as coaches.
Did you come into this game with the new rules in mind, and then you get this random thing like no scrums? Does that change what you were thinking on the bench during the game?
You've just got to adapt. You know, you've got to adapt whoever's coming on or whatever the context of the game. You have your plans, best laid plans, but it's footy and it's rugby. Things happen. Again, you know, we've got to put it on the field. I've got to own it. The players have got to own it.
You talk about honesty, you talk about all the things, Mills, about trying to get a performance and a rebound performance, because that's what we are expecting from the All Blacks. We expected that in the second test against England, and we still didn't find a way to get better. Probably the concern for me is the fact that across this, it doesn't appear as though we're any clearer. You talked about maybe some uncertainty in what they're doing. What changes can they make? The one concern for me as well is, not for the first time, talking about the things we're practicing and then executing are two different things. So what do you think the conversations they have today around that are?
Well, today's going to be a crucial day. Not so much in terms of the players, but I think the coaching staff. You know, it's often, you've taken a hit. You know, you've lost a test match that you perhaps wanted to sort of absolutely go out there and dominate. But then there's so many things of the game. The guys obviously aren't sort of implementing the things that they're supposed to be implementing. But what do you focus on? You've got to prioritise things. It's so important that now, JK, and you guys would know that you go and do this, go and do this, go and do that, and by the end of the week, we're in no better place, you know, so it's important they prioritise certain aspects. How many of those aspects? I'm not sure.
Well, for me, there's 4 things that I think that we should be looking at. First is our exit strategy. Now, I've had a really horrible day because I got home and my son-in-law was in the garage having a cycle with an Aussie jersey on. Like that. It's just not on. And then I said, why are you wearing that shit in my garage? And he said, I couldn't find my Argentinian jersey. So anyway, I popped upstairs and said to my daughter, you can divorce him anytime you like. But we actually had a discussion when he came upstairs about the exit. I said, our exit strategy. He said, what's an exit strategy? And I said, well, the exit strategy is how do you get out of pressure? How do you get out of your own half? And the thing that the problem that I've got with our exit strategy is our exit strategy at the moment is to play competitive kicks, right? Landing in our own half and try and compete for them. And I thought yesterday and for the whole series so far, that's not working. I mean, you know, TJ won't be happy with this performance of his, but even when we're there, this needs to be competitive, but you're not getting out of your own half. So if you're not competitive, right, then you don't get out of your half and they are still in your half. So that would be the first thing that I think we look at. We look at our exit strategy and say, does this suit our game, right? And if you're going to have an exit strategy with competitive high balls, do you then look at selection? Who are our best high ball catchers? I personally don't like exit strategies. I don't mind it occasionally where you're competitive, but I don't like exit strategies where you're actually not trying to carve out and get them into their own half. Yeah. That's my personal opinion. The second thing is the attack. Like, when we attack, we actually attacked well. But because we couldn't exit, we didn't get those opportunities. We became quite predictable. So I don't know if we can watch some attack.
Let's talk about some of that, though, because we've got to remember that we were in front for large parts of this Test match. We were 10-0 up, but we did some really nice stuff in attack, like you said, and all of a sudden it was the critical moments that we lost when the game was on the line, Mills. And you talk about exit strategies. You know, I look at some of the attack. On the rarest occasion we got advantage line, particularly in Mark Talia's try, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a little bit of variation in what we were doing, and that's the thing that we haven't seen a lot of.
See those little passes and that little change of angle? We're getting over the advantage line, only one person to clean out, really good. Inside ball to Blackadder, over the advantage line again. And then it finishes with them backtracking like we saw them doing to us before, Mark Talia getting off his wing. So when we did those things, we look really, really good. But what happens when you're coming out of that exit, we got a little bit predictable at times. So our front rows were not giving those little passes. So they were getting off the line and smacking us and keeping us in our half.
So in terms of that, when you talk about our game plan and exit strategy, though, Mills, and you talk about who's responsible for that, right? So they talk about what they're practicing and what they're training. It looks to me that's what they're practicing then. Like going to the year, contestable, because it's easy to just kick the ball long. I mean, that's not a hard decision to make if that's what you're training, right?
But that's what I'm talking about. It's dissecting that. If it's the exit strategy, and that's obviously what we think it is, that's got to be a priority, right? What is the end result? What are you looking for in your exit? Why are you kicking? Are you kicking out because you know there's an absolute opportunity that our line out can dominate there and try and win some ball? But are you kicking long? Okay, we're kicking long because we can get a chase on and really connect and force them to kick back. At the moment, it seems like we're under pressure and we're just kicking for the sake of kicking to relieve that pressure, only to have that pressure put on back on us immediately because we haven't kicked well and Argentina are willing to bring the game to us. So as soon as we get that sort of clarity, even if it's contestables, we don't seem to be knowing what we're actually doing in the pitches to be able to get that end result. We're just kicking to try and relieve a little bit of pressure, only to put ourselves back under pressure.
What are the learnings for Ardy, Geordie, right? Possibly Bowden, Damien and Cody yesterday. Because whether you like it or not, they've been in the leadership group, but they haven't been the leaders, right? So that last line out, if Sam Whitelock was there, he would have had the line out or the three options. We would have won that line out. In the end, what happened was misconfusion, and we lose the line out at the back, right? In a critical moment. But the line out was really good, besides that one, when we needed to win that one to win the game, right? That is a leadership thing. So the leadership now needs to go away this week and go, okay, do we need to have a really serious conversation with the coaches because we're doing too much, we're a bit confused? And what did we learn? What should we have done in that last line out? How should we have gone the last, 15 minutes? How should we have managed it? Did we manage it properly or we didn't have enough awareness? And I think they're good things, right? They're really, really good things.